designer is a designer that has not had any design school training, any formal design school training, but a person who can actually see design and know what taste that they like personally. It may not be the taste that the trends of the world will follow. It may not be the latest fashions, because I want to clarify something. I am not a fashion designer, because I don't like to keep up with the latest styles and fashions in that manner. But I like to take maybe what's new, add a little something to it for myself, or whatever, suits my taste. Of course, when I was introduced to a sewing machine way back in middle school, umpteen years ago, and when I saw a sewing machine and I saw what a sewing machine can do, oh, I was fit to be tied then. You could not hold me down. It was at that point in middle school that I realized how important sewing was. So my first step in becoming a freelance designer was I like to take things that exist and take them apart and see how they work, and then try to put them back together. Because once you do that, once you deconstruct a garment and you can actually put that garment back together, you've actually sewn. You've actually learned a lot in that particular experience than most people would ever learn in taking a design course. Because for one, you're going to learn the technique of removing stitches. You're going to learn and see just how things are actually put together. Start by looking at clothing. Look at your own clothing. Look at how it looks. Look at what you would change about it. And if you look at something that's existing already in your wardrobe and you decide to change it, guess what? You just designed something. Because a design is just that. It's a design. It can be your design. It can be someone else's design. Or you can take an existing design and you can recreate it into something that works for you. So you just kind of have to tinkle with it. And whatever you come up with, there are no rights and wrongs. It's all design. It's all fashion. And you see what comes out on the runway. So anything goes pretty much when it comes to fashion. So find your own taste, and that's what you need to work with. I do suggest that maybe you go to your local thrift store, pick up a few items that you like, doesn't matter how easy or how complicated they are, and take them apart. Literally get a seam ripper and take the entire garment apart. Look at how the curves are. Look at how the shape of the pieces are. And then try to duplicate it or put it back together. And that's going to give you an opportunity to see how things fit together. One of the main things that you have to have if you want to be a freelance designer is a mannequin. So I would suggest start with getting a mannequin that's close to your size. I know. There's millions of trends out there, and everybody comes up with a new design every day. Clothing is almost like electronics. You buy a piece of an electronic gadget today, tomorrow it's outdated and it's also replaced by something new. Well, it's the same thing with fashion. As you notice, a lot of today's fashions have gone back to the 70s and the 80s. So if you still had those designs back in your closet back then, guess what? You're in style today. Now, once you find what you love to design, then that will pretty much define what type of designer you are. In my case, I'm a formal wear designer. I love designing formal wear. And when I do casual/dressy wear, I love to incorporate roses and ruffles and flounces and gathers. I like all the accents. I love things that swag. I love things that just kind of lay on the body or drape. So that's part of my design style. And like I said, once you find out these things that you like about yourself and about your clothing, this is going to define who you are as a designer. And also, if you want to be a noticed designer, then you've got to decide who you want to design for. I mean, there are so many different types and classes of people out there. You've got to decide what type of clothing you want to design or what type of people you want to reach. You also need to understand fabric. So if you're not familiar with fabric, I would also say that that would be a very first start. You really need to know the difference between your cottons and your polyesters, your natural fabrics, fabrics that shrink, fabrics that don't shrink, fabrics that stretch. There's just an endless number of fabrics that you need to be comfortable with. Because you can come up with a design for a stretchy fabric and you fall in love with a cotton fabric that has no stretch. And when you go to put your design together, you're going to notice it's not going to look either like the paper you drew it on or the way you draped it on your mannequin, because the fabric doesn't match the design style. So you've got to get familiar with the fabric, and you've got to get familiar with the grain of the fabric to know how it drapes. And that's the first step of understanding draping, which is important for a designer. Get the 411 on draping. Draping is the most wonderful way of learning how to design. You notice a lot of your popular design shows, they have mannequins and they have fabric. There are no patterns, because think about it. Patterns had to start from somewhere, and that's about where they started, is from draping. Drape anybody. Just get a body that will, someone that will stand in to be your model so that you can drape around them. And if you follow these simple steps, you're going to be a wonderful designer. And never, ever let anyone tell you you can't do it, because guess what? You can. Happy designing.